Thank you to the 1000th power. Thank your way to gratitude through the magnificent power of being thankful, that is full of thanks, 1000 times every day. Manifesting a prosperous tomorrow by living in a positive now of daily gratitude. Of that which I'm thankful, by Coach Stefan, Rudolph. Chapter 3. Living in Soulful Awareness. Facing all emotions through observing thoughts while understanding and defining feelings. Becoming aware and taking necessary action to form desired positive results. Your commonality is your reality until you change your personality through the actuality of knowing your thoughts create tomorrow's reality. And by not knowing what you want, you will attract what you don't want. Quote, in order to live life, you must earn one. End quote, by De La Soul. This evening was my accidental awakening, my accidental enlightenment, and my accidental introduction to the meant-to-beism of life. Following my 1000 thank yous as I sat curbside to my past life, I saw my new life within myself, becoming the self I always wanted to be. I came to life to form a bold appreciation of the true courage it took to not only survive physically, but awaken spiritually, versus all the blocks and excuses I had lived with for so many years until this evening. I now felt the light and life from the knowingness and awokeness for who I truly am in this world around me, and especially now for who I truly am in this world within me. I realized how lucky I was and how continually grateful I must remain for still being alive and a part of this world. I had come to a moment of awareness of how precious life is and how quickly it may pass in order to begin to truly love life. I began to live in the now. The paramedics rushed to greet me with open arms after I had survived the most horrific 24 hours of my life. I could see in their eyes, as they came upon the scene of a head-on collision with the center median, they felt this call should have been followed by the coroner as well. The past 24 hours of my life included 2 separate grand mal seizures, 2 separate ambulance rides, 3 separate emergency room visits, 2 separate car accidents in the same vehicle in the same evening, followed by jail and a DUI. All of which were subsequently followed and ended this evening with one heavenly spiritual awakening. I saw both paramedics overlook the accident as they began to approach me, all the while shaking their heads and discussing the severity of this collision together. One of them looked at me. "You're lucky to be alive." This was their friendly introduction. I came up with a much-needed perfect response. The response of silence. The ego within me was now convincingly silenced by the spirit that now grew within me. The spirit for a whole new life. They then reviewed the accident scene further and began tests for my level of clarity. All their basic medical questions followed in order to assess my needs. They showed nothing but sympathy and compassion for my situation as the questions were answered. The back door vehicle entrance up to the ambulance awaited at the end of my escorted ride on their gurney. The police, on the other hand, based on my accident and prior DUI conviction just 3 years earlier, awaited with handcuffs for my lockup. Before my ambulance entry, their interrogation began with my arresting rights as I strapped securely to the gurney. Understanding my right to be silent, of which felt good inside now, I still chose to comply and give all necessary answers for them to assess the situation. Yet after fully complying to their questions, I then realized what awaited me. Stolen vehicle, driving without insurance, driving on a medically suspended license due to epilepsy, driving under the influence of medically prescribed drugs combined with alcohol, all of which, as well, broke my current probation from my previous DUI. All evidence and reality of this situation sent me into this moment into a state of shock at the charges I faced and what I had done to my life. Son, you could have killed someone, the officer noted while pointing at the smoke rolling from underneath the hood from my stepfather's totaled vehicle in front of me. He made sure I took the necessary minute to clear my mind and my vision and see the severity of the accident. He did so with good intent. It helped me to better understand how serious this not only was currently, but more importantly, how serious it could have been if I had hit and injured or even killed someone. That someone could have been you, Stefan. That was your choice to drive intoxicated, and it would have been your choice to kill someone if you did. Do you understand that? The officer glared and rendered silence into me to all excuses the ego wanted but did not have any longer. You wouldn't be seeing freedom for the next 15 years or more. Do you understand that as well, son? His necessary verbal punishment reminded me of the authoritarian father figure I so desperately needed while growing up. The officer then began to walk the scene of the accident. I saw him begin to look on in a bewildered state of mind, though, as he assessed the vehicle and looked for the probable cause behind the evidence of it having two separate collisions. The first and obvious was that being how the current collision had completely demolished the entire front left end. Yet upon the walk-around, the officer saw how the entire back right side was so heavily damaged. He knew it had to be a completely separate accident. He then came over to me to ask a question. But now, he too was speechless, as there was no obvious answer. Then, in my drunken, blurred state of mind, as I tried quickly to sober up, more reality began to hit home. In my mind, I could be adding on another charge to the officer's list if I wasn't careful in answering. I quietly left out the fact that I was in a prior hit and run earlier the same evening in the same car with the same level of intoxication, if not more. Upon the accident scene, as the front left end of the car was wrapped snugly around the center median, the officers began their paperwork process and were actually aware of the front end damage and how this happened. Yet questions began to arise as they huddled for answers on the subsequent rear end damage. I could see through the lost stares and glares of how they assessed it. How it happened was to remain a mystery unless I told them. The only answers to the questions were obviously that it was a second accident, somewhere else at a completely separate time versus the current accident scene they were at right now. The officers continued their duty by holding the necessary interrogation and questioning to find an answer, of which I had none. Sir, a polite second officer confronted me. There are two separate collisions that took place on your vehicle. What happened? Yet honestly, my mind went blank. My answers were less. Combined with the ongoing emotional and mental stress of the present scene, I continued to black out due to my level of intoxication. I did so in the midst of good timing as indecipherable answers came blurting out in order to fill the officer's notepad. Jotting down what he could as fast as he could while trying to understand the gestures and rhetoric stemming from my bewildered state of mind, the officer saw that clear, concise, knowledgeable answers would remain shrouded. Even in my diluted reality, caused by the numbness of pills and alcohol, all from the 24, 48, 72-hour period earlier, the unconscious lack of clarity is what saved me from further charges based on the actual circumstances that brought me to this point. All in all, it was a new life awakening for me this evening. I felt happy to have survived and happy, even more happier now, to be alive. This happiness actually outweighed the sadness for the first time in a long time, longer than I ever could remember. Suddenly, as the officers continued their questioning, random answers came streaming out. I answered their questions as honestly as possible while being so highly intoxicated. Answers such as, I don't know. I don't remember. No, I don't know, is all I could say as I fought for recollection with each question that came to me about what happened and why. Yet looking back and seeing the vehicle in which I should have lost my life, I truly had no answers, with the exception that death was my conscious ego objective before the collision, and life was my subconscious spiritual answer for why I had survived after the collision. As the paramedics finished their medical help, my DUI breathalyzer test came back. I was astounded. It was a very low 0.03 blood alcohol content. I knew that while on probation and while I was still stuck in the system, even though the California law was 0.08, my prior conviction and my current probation would bring that down to a tolerance level of 0.00. And I would automatically be guilty and sentenced accordingly. As the paramedics ran my medical records and were unveiling the facts of my medical background to the officers, who were currently busy pulling up my driving record as well, I could see their looks of astonishment once again on all their faces. My blurred, drunken state did not affect me. I was literally blown away by how they looked and what their response was. Even being medical professionals themselves with years of experience as paramedics, I heard their tone and conversation completely change when they realized that I had been booked in the hospital twice prior that same day. In their books and in their medical histories as EMTs, I'm positive this was one of the worst epileptic combined with alcoholic addict calls they had ever seen or would see for years to come. 2 separate grand mal seizure incidences within the past 18-hour period, combined with a now possible stolen vehicle and a definite DUI conviction, along with 2 separate driving accidents, all in the same evening. It was mind-blowing for them as paramedics. I could see it in their eyes. Earlier that day, the 2 grand mal seizures occurred within 12 hours of each other. The first, while I was at work during a sales training session on only my 3rd day at a new job. Then, in the midst of our journey back home from the hospital, as I answered unanswerable questions to my stepfather due to my memory issues, the second grand mal seizure took place right then and there in the passenger seat as he was driving. To me, my stepfather was the man in life. He came through for everything my mother and I needed and wanted and had in life. He helped me through college and was always there when I needed him. So accordingly, I gave him this nickname when he first dated my mother and called him that ever since. This day and this evening, he lived up to that name once again, the man. Thus, upon my second seizure this day, the man maintained control of the car and the situation and immediately reversed his path to quickly check me back into the hospital once again. And in the irony of it all, we made this drive in his Mazda Sport Coupe car, a vehicle that just hours later I would end up totaling at this scene of the accident on the same road in the same evening. Yet before this occurrence, hours passed by in the hospital, and eventually I was discharged once again. Upon returning home to my parents' house, after my second grand mal, my first ever thoughts of leaving this world became heavily apparent in my mind. Suicide at this time evolved from this pattern based on my feelings of losing the life I had lived, living a life I no longer wanted to live, and not having any hope of having a future life at all. This time period involving thoughts of leaving this world came just hours before the accidental awakening in my head-on collision. Yet up till this evening, I lived with and accepted my sorrow and my escapism as a part of my life, day in and day out, something I viewed as that would never change. I was directly addicted to struggle, directly addicted to emotional bondage, to depression, anxiety, and emotional mood swings. This was the norm, and I accepted it as the norm, as something that I could not change. Thus, it was my life, thus it would not change, and thus it would be me until I died. This emotional bondage was directly fueled by blame. When I began to think of who I was in life, where I was in life, what I had been through in life, and held a constant mindset of the struggle I faced with my future life, it was all based, perceived, created, and manifested to reality by my current mindset. And this mindset being fueled by the ego, I did not. And this mindset being fueled by the ego did not want to leave. Therefore, I was more open to receive continued chaos than perceive future happiness. The chaos outweighed and outfueled the happiness. And the chaos grew and grew and grew. I began to point the finger and blame others. I was addicted to the struggle and addicted to blame. It was an easy way out to want more alcohol, want more prescription drugs, want more weed, want more gambling, want more of anything other than reality. I simply wanted to not face and just escape the real world. To me, the real world consisted of being in a constant need to numb the pain, promote the blame, and never, ever accept the gain. It was my decision to destroy my life. Yet still, up until now, at the scene of the accident and the scene of the awakening, I could not accept it. I had spent the last 3 years dragging myself down into the ultimate state of depression. This was by a choice based on the anger and hostility I had developed toward life itself. Yet now, my actions and decisions in life had formed into a pattern based on regret and fear. Regret for what I had done and mistakes I had made, and fear for what followed in the future based on these mistakes. I had studied, graduated, been hired, got promoted, and succeeded all through my first 31 years of life. Then suddenly, by 34, I was homeless, lost everything in life, and was now living with my parents and nearly facing complete homelessness. I could not handle this new reality. Even though it was a reality of which I had created all on my own, the fact of facing the severity of my now worsened medical condition was unfathomable. Life suddenly seemed easier to leave than it did to live. Yet, I did not want to give up. I never had that mentality or that weakness. I may have given in to the pressure, given in to addiction, and given in to escapism, but I never, ever truly gave up. I now wanted to live. My intention was never to hurt others, and through my heartfelt feelings, I knew by choosing to leave this world based on my weaknesses and inability to handle the life I had created, I would negatively impact the few closest loved ones I still had in my life. The quote, I, myself, had created this life, and I, quote, myself, had to change it. It was now a reality I had to take action against. It was now a reality I had to take action against if I wanted to live. I chose life. The pain I had already passed on to many others of those closest to me in life was a pain I avoided every day to face through the fuel of alcohol. My ex-wife, my friends, my close family members, even my co-workers in one way or another had all been affected. I had been living in a blurred state of reality with 20/20 vision from that of a narcissistic view of only myself and the need to constantly escape. Hurting others was not my intention, yet nor was facing life on life's terms. I chose to remain congruent with avoiding the latter. On a daily basis, alcohol assisted in helping me avoid the feeling of hurt, anger, and pain in my life. The fuel of these feelings was diluted through the fuel of alcohol. I did so by drowning my reality with the intent of gaining barstool knowledge through the numbing emotional fuel of beers and camaraderie at the bars. After so many years of repetition, this became my lifestyle, and this became my normality. Avoidance of reality is in and of itself its own true addiction. Combine this fact with the alcoholic epileptic lifestyle, and my entire life quickly became a whirlwind fueled by constant denial. I saw it as insanity. I knew I had to change it. Yet still, I continued to live every day in a blurred state of denial. It's all a big blur. This was my drunken bar joke for the next morning to follow when it came to remembering what I had did the evening before and why. The evening prior was literally all a big blur. Yet this was a joke that was funny when I was drunk, but started becoming painful, a true painful reality when I was sober in the morning. When working to develop the strength, intent, and action to leave my habits behind for a new lifestyle, this was even more of a big blur. Only addicts know this feeling, yet only true addicts continue to live it rather than face it and change it. I could not do the latter and did not want to change. I had never faced death and knew nothing about what was required to truly change my path. I knew all along that my current path would eventually lead to death, but even when death came knocking on my door this evening, I was not ready to answer. Quote, love is water from the heart that fuels the body, the mind, and the soul. Addiction drains the fuel of love from the heart. Be it known that love can and will conquer all when it comes to addiction. Yet in order to conquer and in order to win, the addict must open up to and connect with the gray area between all or nothing in their mind. This gray area holds the answer called love, an answer that is difficult to see and even more difficult to find and hold on to when one's life is centered around fueling their daily addiction to escapism. Listen to that voice within, speaking softly of change. This is the voice of your soul. Quiet at first, it is the voice of reason. Recognize addictive reasoning by synchronizing awareness and instituting constant change. Peace of mind will be heard. Peace in life will be seen. Peace and harmony will be lived. Alcohol dilutes these necessary steps required for clearing your vision and changing your life. In the midst of alcohol being a part of your life, the process and day where it takes over and becomes your life is actually never seen. Before you know it, And before you can act on it with strength to break the cycle, alcohol is your life. From this point forward, it is too late to simply stop quietly and easily. That voice within, the voice of your spirit for life, is silenced by the ego. The voice fueled with growth from alcohol, that is the ego. Fueled, as an engine is, by alcohol. This ego voice eventually will be in a constant rage for more. More alcohol, more escape, more of what used to be your reality, escaping from reality, more and more. And in a constant denial of your spirit, and will work tirelessly to mute it out of your drunken perception of life. Suddenly, you wake up one day and realize your daily life focuses on when and where the next drink will be for you. This process quietly takes control of your life as you lose control of your life. You have had the choice to listen to either the voice to live by or the voice to die by. You have now lost that choice and have subconsciously chosen the latter, the voice to die by. It is not only felt physically, but over time, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, your life has been lost. In the same way that alcohol fuels the engine of a car and water would seize this same engine, over time, alcohol will definitely seize the engine of your body by diluting the mind and draining the fuel of life from your heart and from your soul. End quote. Be it known that the answer for love in one's life does not lie at the bottom of a bottle. This evening, I discovered this fact while driving highly intoxicated under the influence of escapism. In a blurred state of mind with no understanding for life and no ambition to find a reason to live, I saw that all these traits and habits that fueled my engine in life were fueled by alcohol. Alcohol is perfect for a car engine, but death for the human engine called life. By colliding head-on with the center median and nearly ending my life, I saw this now as a subliminal message based on the center median being at a crossroad in my life. And at the time of my arrival at this crossroad, I was unable to make a decision on which way to go. I began to find less answers at the bottom of each bottle I finished, and more of continual fuel for narcissism, a trait of focusing only on oneself and one's intentions without care or compassion for others. Even in the kindest and giving of true souls, the ability to love can be unconsciously diluted out of one's life through the fuel of alcohol. And of that, in my life, which I did. When you can only see the necessity to escape and never feel the warmth of love, nor see the brightness of life, or have the understanding of living a life without alcohol, without drugs, or without escapism, a life of normality will never make sense and therefore never be achieved. Without opening the mind through the key of the heart, positive change will never take place. Being a part of life and having love for life on a daily basis comes to truth with clearer vision. Clearer vision comes through in life when the intent and action to live life to the fullest is implemented on a daily basis. Taking this action is one's own responsibility. Responsibility, aka the ability to respond. Yet due to the diluted segmentation of the mind caused by alcohol, the blurred vision brought on through this constant escapism limits one's ability to achieve true fulfillment and enlightenment that can and will happen in life. In the life of an addict, clarity to the meaning of life, and implementation of living a life in a clear state of mind is all but null and void. When your mind is blurred, your life is blurred. And when your life is blurred, you will never be able to discover the unlimited possibility for the passion to live this life to the fullest, every day, day in and day out. Up until this evening, a state of numbing blindness based on escapism is how I lived my life. I had to drink, I had to escape, I had to numb the pain. That's all alcohol continued to do for me with each and every drink. Yet I never consciously drank saying, I want to escape. On the contrary, I drank to lessen the pain that true reality had in store for me. If I did not drink, I was simply weak. So weak, I could never admit it. That is the insanity of alcoholism. As I awoke on the curb at the scene of my second accident this evening, I wanted out of life and nearly achieved my goal minutes earlier. With each and every drink, day in and day out, alcohol successfully assisted me in the near completion of the task of ending my life on this road, a road less traveled. I wanted to quickly pass each day into the night and each night into a flight out of this life, a life of which I had deemed a darkness of hell, one I could not escape without the fuel of alcohol. A new reality was only one tomorrow away, yet each tomorrow became further and further out of reach with each drink. By constantly working to escape the next week, the next month, the next year, all combined escapism nearly ended up pushing me into the next life, the afterlife, that being death. I finally realized it's not going to change until I change. I began to tell myself out loud on the curb this evening, change your mind, change your life. Reset your mind, reset your life. Change your mind, change your life. Reset your mind, reset your life. You have to make a change. Change now. Grow now or die now. It's up to you, Stefan. It's up to you. Change your mind, change your life. Reset your mind, reset your life. I mumbled it over and over. I said it. I spoke it. I meant it. I lived it. Right then and there, that became this, the new me. I kept repeating this newfound fact that was derived from my heart and delivered to my mind for action. This path was clear and the connection was made. As where before with alcohol, the mouth full of excuses was in between this path to stop the change and stop the action. It did not want to change. It wanted normality. The ego that was fueled by alcohol wanted its normality day in and day out of the same drinking patterns and the same escapism. Quote, in an instant, in a moment, in one thought, in one word, in one action, turn that's going to happen into this is happening, and action will take place. End quote. I had to get off this road we call life, but I did not want to end life. I did not want to die. I wanted a different life. But up till this point, I wanted it handed to me. I then realized that I always wanted and needed someone to tell me the fact and simple steps that you must work in order to earn, in order to succeed, and in order to grow. I wanted to be told what to do. This was a subconscious awakening to my weakness. Yet I could see this father figure that had to be there for this process in life was never there for me in life. Growing up, I had no father figure or male role model to guide me in life. No one to tell me what to do, and not one figure of a father to show me how to be, how to act, or how to do what to do in order to become a real man, a true man, that which of is a loving man. I was lost. I kept awaiting his arrival to simply show me directions and give me instructions. I had always been waiting for someone to tell me what to do. Deep down inside, I was waiting for my biological father that was never there to finally be there. I waited for a brother I never had. I waited for the mentor in my life to show up and guide me and directly, yet one who never showed. I was waiting for someone to take action for me, waiting for someone to tell me how to live life. Yet until this moment, that person never arrived. And until this moment, I did not realize one significant fact. That person had actually already arrived. That person for years was simply waiting to be acknowledged. That person, that man, that new being was me. Upon this awakening, I cried to release the past. It was fuel toward recovery. I cried on the curb this evening. It felt good. I continued. I released energy that had been bottled up for so many years. It grew to a feeling of incredibleness. I was blown away. Action makes change. I learned this fact this evening and released these bottled emotions as it made room for new emotions, new positive growth emotions. That's what I needed. That's what I was waiting for. That was my release. Suddenly, I mumbled more meaning to myself in a higher tone with a higher level of confidence once again. Quote, "You have a strong heart, and you know you want to change. You want something else in life. You no longer need someone else to tell you this fact. You are telling you right now that you are changing. You are growing. You are you. Change, grow, live. You can do it. Change, grow, live. You can do it. Change, grow, live. You can do it." End quote. I continued to repeat. As this felt good. It felt very good. This came from the new me, and I liked it. I knew what it was. And I now knew who I was becoming in life, deep down inside. I listened to my heart for the first time at this one brief moment, and from here, this one brief moment changed my life. And it actually saved my life and created a new life. It changed my life by opening my heart to release the fuel of passion to fuel my life with purpose, to connect the dots of the heart and the mind and eliminate the mouth full of excuses in between. Shut up and grow, I told myself. Shut up and grow. This was a purpose, and there was a purpose of a whole new meaning and understanding for what life was to me, for me, and now in me, in and of itself. What this new life was is what I was discovering and what I was thankful for. A whole new path was created by this event. A path shined on by a new light in life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I continued to repeat.